The world is not lurching towards war because of an impulsive tweet. To believe that is to mistake the flicker of a match for the ignition of a powder keg decades in the making. We are standing at the precipice of an event that will trigger a cascading economic collapse already mathematically priced into the global order, $5 trillion. That is the minimum amount of global value currently sitting in a state of extreme fragility, directly correlated to the Strait of Hormuz and the petrodollar system. And we have, at most, 10 days. But here is what the mainstream media will not tell you. There are no surprises in systems theory, only phase transitions. What we are about to witness is the inevitable outcome of a mechanism running uninterrupted for over 50 years. To understand why a strike on Iran is not just possible but mathematically certain within a specific window, we must discard the narrative of personalities and examine the unbreakable mechanics of empires. The pattern is fixed. It has 4 immutable stages. Stage 1, the unipolar foundation. A single hegemonic power establishes a global financial and security architecture, creating a reserve currency backed by a strategic commodity and protected by military force. Stage 2, the fiat expansion. The hegemon over-leverages. It detaches its currency from the hard asset to fund consumption and war, creating a debt-based mirage of prosperity. Stage 3, the axis of challenge. A coalition of rival powers begins aggressively trading the strategic commodity outside the hegemon's currency system. The hegemon perceives an existential threat to its ability to print money and fund its existence. Stage 4, the terminal reset. The hegemon must physically secure the commodity flow by force, or watch its financial system implode. It chooses force. The strike is inevitable. The only variable is the date. This is the engine of history, and it is about to fire again. Before we apply the scalpel to the current 10-day window, we must prove the mechanism is absolute. Let us dissect 3 historical moments. Each followed this exact pattern to its bloody conclusion. Case study 1, the Peloponnesian War, 431 BCE. This is the foundational text of systemic collapse. Stage 1, the unipolar foundation. After the Persian Wars, Athens emerged as the dominant naval and economic power. It established the Delian League, which it quickly transformed into the Athenian Empire. The foundation was silver and the control of the Aegean trade routes. Tribute flowed to the Acropolis. Stage 2, the fiat expansion. Athens grew fat on its hegemony. It used tribute money to fund the Parthenon. Pericles moved the League's treasury from Delos to Athens, a literal act of centralization. Then Athens issued the Megarian decree, excluding a key trading partner of its rival, Corinth, from its markets. This was economic overreach. Stage 3, the axis of challenge. Corinth and Megara formed a coalition and appealed to Sparta. They did not want to destroy Athens. They wanted to break its economic stranglehold. Sparta, fearing the erosion of its own alliance system, was forced to act. Stage 4, the terminal reset. Athens refused to rescind the decree. Pericles, confident in the walls of his island fortress, believed war was inevitable. The Spartan king invaded Attica. The result was a 27-year war that destroyed the Athenian Empire, bankrupted the Greek city-states, and paved the way for the rise of Macedon. Economic overreach, challenger coalition, terminal military reset, check. Case study 2, the outbreak of World War I, 1914. The most devastating example in the industrial age. Stage 1, the unipolar foundation. Great Britain was the undisputed global hegemon. The Pax Britannica was enforced by the Royal Navy. The foundation was the gold standard, with the pound sterling as the global reserve currency. The commodity was global trade itself, secured by British coaling stations across the globe. Stage 2, the fiat expansion. While Britain remained on the gold standard, its industrial dominance waned relative to a rising Germany. Germany embarked on its own imperial expansion. It built a high-seas fleet to challenge the Royal Navy. This was systemic stress caused by a rival attempting to replicate the British model. Stage 3, the axis of challenge. Germany allied with Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. Britain, feeling its naval supremacy threatened, formed the Triple Entente with France and Russia. The challenge was not about an archduke. It was about the Berlin to Baghdad Railway, a German project threatening to open trade routes to the Middle East outside British naval control. Stage 4, the terminal reset. The assassination in Sarajevo was merely the spark. The alliance systems, built to manage the Challenger coalition, guaranteed a cascade to war. When Germany activated the Schlieffen Plan, invading neutral Belgium, Britain entered, not for gallant little Belgium, but because a German-controlled Belgian coast was a loaded pistol pointed at the heart of the British economy. The reset cost 20 million lives and ended the British hegemony. Check. Case study 3, the 1973 oil crisis and the Yom Kippur War. This is the most crucial proof, as it established the architecture we are about to see collapse. Stage 1, the unipolar foundation. Post-World War II, the United States established Bretton Woods. The dollar was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. The world's currencies were pegged to the dollar. This was the American unipolar moment. Stage 2, the fiat expansion. The 1960s saw the Great Expansion. The U.S. printed dollars to fund the Vietnam War and Lyndon Johnson's Great Society programs. The dollars in circulation exceeded the gold in Fort Knox. France, under Charles de Gaulle, began redeeming its dollars for gold. By 1971, President Richard Nixon closed the gold window, officially defaulting on Bretton Woods. The dollar became pure fiat. To survive, it needed a new anchor. It needed oil. Stage 3, the axis of challenge. In 1973, Egypt and Syria, backed by the Soviet Union, launched a surprise attack on Israel. More importantly, the Arab members of OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, imposed an oil embargo on the United States. The price of oil quadrupled. The Challenger Coalition was attempting to wrest control of the strategic commodity from the American sphere. Stage 4, the terminal reset. The U.S. did not invade the oil fields. It executed a financial reset more powerful than any bomb. Henry Kissinger negotiated a secret deal with the Saudi royal family. The deal was this: the U.S. would provide military protection to the Saudi regime. In return, Saudi Arabia would ensure that all OPEC oil sales were denominated exclusively in U.S. dollars, and it would invest its enormous oil profits in U.S. Treasury bonds. The petrodollar system was born. The mechanism was reset. The U.S. secured the commodity flow and created infinite demand for its own debt. Check. Every single time the pattern holds. Pattern. Hegemony, expansion, Challenger Coalition, terminal reset. The names change. The technology changes. The mathematics do not. Now we apply the scalpel. We are no longer discussing history. We are discussing the next 10 days. The subject is the United States and its confrontation with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The pattern is running in real time. Stage 1, the unipolar foundation. Verified. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the United States has been the sole global hyperpower. Its foundation is the petrodollar system established in 1974. The global demand for oil forces every nation to acquire U.S. dollars to participate in the energy market. Those dollars flow back into U.S. Treasury bonds, funding the American government's deficit. This is the exorbitant privilege. It allows the U.S. to run massive trade deficits and maintain over 800 military bases. The strategic commodity is oil, and the system requires that oil is traded in dollars and that the physical flow is protected by the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, patrolling the Strait of Hormuz. Check. Stage 2, the fiat expansion. Verified. The last 25 years have been a masterclass in overextension. To fund 2 unwinnable wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, massive tax cuts, and a ballooning welfare state, the U.S. leveraged its hegemonic privilege. The U.S. dollar supply has exploded. The national debt has skyrocketed past $34 trillion. But the critical overextension is strategic. The U.S. assumed it could police the world indefinitely. Then in 2003, it invaded Iraq and destroyed the secular Ba'athist government. This removed the primary bulwark against Iranian influence. The overextension created a power vacuum, and the vacuum was filled by the very force that now threatens the system. It created a Shia crescent from Tehran to Beirut. Verified. Stage 3, the axis of challenge. Verified. Right now. The Challenger Coalition to the American Unipolar Foundation is no longer a ragtag group. It is a sophisticated multipolar alliance designed specifically to break the petrodollar and eject the U.S. from the strategic heart of the commodity flow. The axis consists of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the central node, the axis of resistance, including the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria, a coordinated network designed to choke U.S. assets, and the BRICS plus powers, specifically Russia and China. This is the critical component. Russia and China are not fighting a religious war. They are fighting an economic one. They are funding, arming, and diplomatically shielding Iran because Iran holds the key to dismantling the U.S. financial system. The specific challenge is twofold. The military challenge: the Houthis, armed with Iranian missiles, have effectively shut down the Red Sea shipping route. They are attacking ships with impunity. This is a direct assault on a global trade artery. More importantly, Iran is closer than ever to weapons-grade nuclear capability. The financial challenge: this is the $5 trillion lever. For decades, the U.S. has used the SWIFT financial system as a weapon. In response, Iran, Russia, and China are building an alternative financial architecture. They are trading oil in yuan, rupees, rubles, and gold. They are creating settlement systems that bypass the dollar entirely. Here is the existential threat. If Saudi Arabia, the linchpin of the 1974 deal, ever decides to start accepting yuan for its oil sales to China, a deal that has been discussed for years, the petrodollar system collapses overnight. Why would anyone need dollars if the world's largest oil exporter does not take them? The Challenger Coalition is not trying to defeat the U.S. military in a conventional war. They are trying to make the dollar irrelevant. They are sawing off the branch the U.S. is sitting on. And this brings us to the terminal countdown, stage 4, the terminal reset. The next 10 days. Why 10 days? Because we are in a specific window of political and strategic opportunity that is closing rapidly. First, the political vacuum. Between a sitting president, who is a lame duck, and an incoming administration, there is a perceived window of weakness. To the Challenger Coalition, this looks like permission to accelerate. But to the architects of the American system, it looks like a window for a decisive surgical strike before the guard changes, a strike that pins the response on the new administration, avoiding a protracted political war during a transition. Second, the Israeli imperative. Israel views a nuclear Iran as an existential threat that cannot be tolerated. They have a limited window, potentially before the U.S. political transition complicates intelligence sharing, to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. They have the capability, they have the motivation. The only question is whether the U.S. joins, approves, or is forced to backstop a strike that goes wrong. Third, the lame duck theory of war. History shows that outgoing presidents, particularly those who feel their legacy is tied to toughness, have a narrow window to act. They are unburdened by re-election concerns. They can authorize a strike and hand the aftermath to their successor. It is the ultimate Hail Mary to reset the system. The trigger will not be a single event. It will be a perceived imminent threat. Perhaps a convoy of advanced IRGC missiles is detected heading towards Yemen. Perhaps intelligence confirms the final assembly of a nuclear device at Fordo. Perhaps a U.S. ship in the Strait is accidentally struck by an Iranian naval vessel. The excuse will be manufactured by the mechanism itself. If the strike comes, it will not be a pinprick. It will be a systematic campaign to destroy Iran's nuclear program, its air defense systems, and its ability to project power. The stated goal will be to delay the nuclear program. The systemic goal will be to reestablish the credibility of American force, to send a message to the petrodollar challengers that the U.S. will burn the entire region to the ground to protect its financial architecture. But here's the terrifying part of stage 4. In the pattern, the terminal reset rarely resets to the original state. It resets to a new, usually more chaotic state. The Peloponnesian War ended the Athenian Empire. World War I ended the British Empire. The 1973 reset created the petrodollar system. So what does the 2025 reset create? If the U.S. strikes Iran, the Challenger Coalition will respond. The Houthis will escalate in the Red Sea. Hezbollah will launch thousands of rockets into Israel. Iran will attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz, at least temporarily. The price of oil will instantly spike to $150, $200 a barrel or higher. Global supply chains, already fragile, will snap. Inflation will surge back with a vengeance. The Federal Reserve will be forced to choose between raising rates to kill inflation and crashing the housing market and government debt servicing, or printing money to pay for the war and destroying the dollar's value. And in that chaos, the Challenger Coalition wins the long game. A $200 barrel of oil traded in yuan or gold looks very attractive to a Europe freezing in the winter. The BRICS bloc will present itself as the stable, non-belligerent alternative to the warmongering United States. The U.S. will win the battle, but in trying to reset the system, it may shatter it entirely. Dismiss the idea that this time is different. Dismiss American exceptionalism as a shield. The United States is not immune to the mechanical laws of history. It is an empire. And empires, when faced with the loss of the financial privilege that funds their existence, resort to the only tool they have left: force. Dismiss the notion that modern economic interdependence will prevent war. Interdependence is the leash, not the shield. When one party decides to cut the leash, the other bleeds. The global economy is not a reason for peace. It is a hostage. The actionable insight is not to panic buy gold, though that may provide personal comfort. The insight is to understand the machine. Watch the news not for the who and the what, but for the why. When you see headlines about the Iranian nuclear program, recognize it as stage 3. When you see the price of oil twitch, recognize it as the pulse of stage 4. Position yourself not as a spectator of random events, but as an analyst of a systemic process. You have 10 days, perhaps less. The trigger is being polished. The coordinates are being loaded. The mechanism, built in 1974 and stressed to its breaking point, is about to engage its final phase. We are not predicting the future. We are simply reading the operating manual of the present. The question is not if the strike will come, but whether you will understand the pattern that caused it, or be swept away by the chaos it unleashes. Subscribe now. Do not wait for the first explosion to understand how the machine was built. The next video will deconstruct exactly how the petrodollar system was engineered, and more importantly, how to structurally survive the coming collapse when the reset is complete. The pattern is absolute. The countdown has begun.